Well, what is going on, everybody? Welcome everybody into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. It is so good to have every single one of you joining us. My name is Joe Miller, and you can find me on Twitter at Joe Miller Wired, alongside my two co-hosts, former Buffalo Bills Jerry Ostrowski and John Fina. You can find those fellas on Twitter at John Fina and at Ostrowski_. Big O. It's so good to have again you guys with us. Please do us a favor. Please find us on X, on Twitter, whatever you want to call it. All that stuff, that information on where to find our socials is actually in the whatever the topic section is underneath the YouTube video. If you scroll down to like where it talks about the content, there's a bunch of links down there. You can find all of our stuff. But it is so good to have you. Happy Victory Sunday. And we didn't even play today. What a freaking fantastic weekend it's been. Please do us a favor. Please like, please subscribe, whatever platform you are consuming this vidcast on. Please like it. Please subscribe. Whatever podcast, if you're listening to this in post on Victory Monday, Victory Tuesday, Victory, whatever, please like, please subscribe. So good to have you, as I said. And as I always like to say, whether this podcast finds you around a cup of coffee, at the gym with your AirPods in, on the drive to work, or watching us live right now, let us just say one more time, welcome. It's good to have you. The Buffalo Bills currently sit atop the AFC East at 2-0, surprisingly tied with the New England Patriots. We have one more week before the Buffalo Bills find themselves at home on Monday Night Football in prime time against the 0-2 Jacksonville Jaguars, who are probably suffering a little bit right now. Our very own John Fina will be the Buffalo Bills legend of the game for that contest, which is exciting. He'll be in town for that, so he's been working feverishly to get his hey vocal cords ready. And I'm guessing, John, hopes that you don't completely destroy it, much the way Drew Bledsoe did. I don't know if you guys heard about that or not.
Oh, send me that content, and then send me a good one too. I might need some coaching.
I could probably do it for you again. But in this extra episode this week, we're taking a look at the Buffalo Bills stats 2 weeks into the season, talking about our level of concern with Terrell Bernard missing some time and the uncertainty surrounding Taron Johnson. But before we get into all of that, gentlemen, my friends, how are you both?
I'm doing good.
I'm doing great.
I'm doing good. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, man. I'm 4-1 on the weekend.
One at a time.
One at a time.
Jerry, you first.
No, John can go. I mean, John wins all the time. John, that's all they do is
Oh,
win.
here we go.
All
right, I'll do it. I'm 4-1 on the weekend. JV won, varsity won. My Wildcats lost. My Buffalo Bills, they win. 1 year with the Arizona Cardinals. When they win, I claim it. When they don't, I'm just, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
You're not gonna claim the Pukies?
Oh, did I skip that? I'm 5-1. Yeah, Bruno played last night. Duke is 3-0. Thanks for Pukies, Jerry. Come on, man. Played UConn. Good game. Nice to be here. I'm on site in North Carolina, in Durham specifically. Pretty cool to be on the East Coast.
You're going to be spending a lot of time in Durham here over the next couple of years.
Next 5 years for sure.
Absolutely. Jerry, how about yourself, my friend?
Doing fine, man. Doing fine. Just watched some football today. Just trying to recuperate from a long couple of days. Friday night was over at the high school game, just kind of sitting up in the press box, helping out a little bit, looking at stuff. And then we had a early game Saturday. Tulsa took on 13th ranked Oklahoma State. Didn't go real well, but the boy played really, really well. Nice. So I was happy for that, and just needed a day to recoup, man. So it was coffee and chair. I was happy.
It was a good day.
Yeah, coffee, chair, and rehydration.
Anything from the Sunday games that took you guys by surprise? I mean, obviously, Patrick Mahomes having an interception returned by a penalty for a first down did not take anybody by surprise. But was there anything specifically that took anybody by surprise this weekend?
I guess the only thing to me is I don't think it's by surprise. Gerard Mayo and what he's doing in New England, finding ways to be competitive, finding ways to win games. I think that's a really, really big deal. Baker Mayfield's resurgence, his resurrection of his career. It's amazing when you have the same offense coordinator for more than 16 minutes that you can actually get used to running a specific offense. Yeah. But Baker and his deal, I think that Arizona is proving that our win against them on opening week at home is probably a better win than a lot of people wanted to give it credit for. I'm not saying that the LA Rams are juggernauts by no means. They've had some injuries that they're dealing with, and it's hurting them offensively specifically. But they're showing out as well. So there's a few things.
Okay, so apparently I'm wrong. I don't know where my brain was at, but the Patriots lost today. So, but that does not discount what you said about
right. They did lose, and
right.
and I get all that, but that does not mean that they're not being competitive.
Yeah, I misspoke. So for some reason I had it locked in my brain that the Patriots won today. So yeah, so the Bills sit atop the AFC East alone.
I will add to that, the Saints' absolute beatdown of the Cowboys in
beautiful.
Texas is pretty special. And then, I got a buddy who's a Raiders fan who's got zero optimism, and then they come out and beat the Ravens. I mean, that to me was a bit of a shock. So, some good games this weekend, really. And then the Vikings taking down the 49ers. I mean, who picked that?
Right.
Nobody. Absolutely nobody. Yeah, it was a good slate of games this weekend, and got a good one obviously on Sunday night, and then another good one on Monday night as well. Let's turn our focus now to the Buffalo Bills so that we don't keep everybody here forever, because the three of us talking could inevitably do that. Just having bro talk. Looking at the stats, and I'll just hit the offense real quick. Nothing crazy. Josh Allen, 371 yards this season. As far as what he's got so far, he's currently second in the NFL in QBR. Now, I don't know if you two have ever studied passer rating versus QBR and all of that kind of stuff. QBR, for some reason, a couple of years back was a big metric, and it seemed like it was just a way to keep Josh Allen down. Because a couple of years ago, Josh Allen was in the 59, 58, whatever, and then Lamar Jackson and Mahomes were super high. And to start this year, Derek Carr is actually number one in QBR with 96. Josh is two with 83, and then Pat Mahomes is down around 65. But Josh is actually having a really, really good season. When you look at his numbers, he's at 73% completion percentage. And you guys can stop me at any time I'm talking through some of these stats. Otherwise, I could potentially drone on forever before we even get to the defense. Averaging 8 yards per play, 8 yards per pass, 185 yards per game, which is obviously at this point in his season and possibly career, a very low yards per game average for him. We probably expect that to tick up a little bit above 200. We'll see how it goes. 3 touchdowns, 2 sacks, no interceptions, which is great. Quarterback rating of 124.2. I don't know that anybody's ever gotten into the sauce of either of those rankings, the rating or the QBR. I don't know if either of you, having played, understand it any better than anybody else. Real quick, anybody?
No, I don't get into it too much. I think one thing, though, we want to go ahead and focus on this whole thing about QBR ratings and all that, and we want to make sure we mention that Mahomes is 16th. But one thing that Kansas City, I think, does really, really well is they build to the end of the season.
Mm-hmm.
They build to the playoffs. We tend to focus on – we've had good starts now the last so many years.
Yeah.
I would much prefer to build to the playoffs.
Yeah.
And build to a Super Bowl title. So I don't think that, I do take some solace in these ratings, but actually the only ratings that matter to me are wins and losses. And, and right now the Bills have 2, whether he plays at a high quarterback rating or not.
Yeah, that's well said. And you look at where the numbers were last year, and even the first MVP that Lamar Jackson won, they weren't exactly off the chart numbers. Allen's numbers were better both years. So you almost wonder if that even doesn't necessarily matter as far as that goes. But I agree with you. I think I said on the postgame show on Thursday night after the Bills beat the Dolphins, I said to you, MVPs, all that stuff, all I want is a Super Bowl. Just give me one before I die. I think that's where we're all at. James Cook. Oh, go ahead, John. Sorry.
I'm with you on that, Jerry. Wins and losses are the biggest stat that we're concerned about. This rating and quarterback rating is, somewhat nebulous to the bystander, which I am in this instance. But what I would say is, part of those ratings, part of the success rate is partly due to the defense, right?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
Josh came out on Thursday night and just managed a game that was being dominated by our defense. Now, they did get some chunk plays, but they just were unable to capitalize. The running game goes well, right? And our defense is playing well. Then your quarterback gets to sit back and throw shorter balls and make more strategic plays. And I would rather this instance where Josh's numbers are, apparently low as compared, but the defense is playing well and the running game is being very successful.
Yeah, for sure. Moving on to the running backs, James Cook is obviously leading this team with 149 yards after the first two games, averaging 5 yards per carry. He's had a long of 9, 2 rushing touchdowns, which is great. Ray Davis is second with 12 carries for 42 yards, averaging 3.5 yards per carry. And then Josh Allen obviously has the 2 touchdowns as well, which accounts for the 4 TDs rushing that the Buffalo Bills have. Receiving, Khalil Shakir, to no surprise, I don't think. I think we all kind of figured that Khalil Shakir was going to get kind of the bulk of the targets this year, leading the way with 96 yards receiving. He's got 1 touchdown, a long of 21. What has he got? 8 targets and 8 receptions. That's a pretty amazing stat. That's just a continuation of what Khalil was doing last year. Keon Coleman is second, 4 receptions off of 6 targets for 51 yards. And then James Cook is third, 4 for 49 yards. Now, getting into the defense. Now, this is where it gets kind of fun, right? Because you look at the defense as far as where's my defense at? So my defensive stats are missing. Hang on a second. But where I was wanting to go with that is when you look at the defense as far as there's different metrics, and I never understand per se where the metrics line up as far as number one. Oh, they've got the number 1 defense in the league. Well, is it number 1 in points per game?
Right.
Is it number 1 in yards allowed? Is it number 1 in passing yards allowed? Is it like what is the number 1 at? So when you think of defense, while I try to get my web browser correct, the two of you, which one matters most? Points per game against, yards allowed, or passing yards allowed, rushing yards allowed? Which one to you, John, you can go first, matters the most to you?
I think generally when you're giving up a lot of yards on the ground, you're likely to be giving up a lot of points. So I see those going hand in hand. So a stout run defense typically will help you in the points category. So Marv Levy always said, run and stop the run. That was his first key to winning. Run and stop the run, win the turnover battle, and then win the kicking game. So right. I think, to me, stout run defense is really, really where you start, and that controls the points category.
Gotcha, Jerry.
To me, the most important stat in defense is points per game. I think that if you're giving up points, obviously you're having issues. I don't really care about yards per catch. I don't care about if we're keeping teams out of the end zone, then that means we're being successful, because that ultimately is the defense's goal, is to limit points, right? And then I also look at, I think another big statistic to me anyway is turnovers. I like a defense that turns the ball over, keeps guys out of the end zone, and I think you have a successful group.
So the Buffalo Bills, to that point, Jerry, in points allowed per game, are 11th in the NFL at what looks to be 19 points given up as an average. Number 1, Los Angeles Chargers, 6.5. Woof. That is a low number as far as that goes. And when you get into just kind of the defensive players, there's a lot of guys that are flashing, and I'm not necessarily sure that when we talk about this defense, as we kind of begin to talk about it now, and the level of concern as to whether or not what we've seen from the Bills is sustainable. It's not about suffocating defense. It's not about the 84 Bears or the 2000, 85 Bears, the 2000 Baltimore Ravens. It isn't like super suffocating defense. They're making the plays they need to make when they need to make them, right? Which is probably the most important thing. Like when you look at Groot and the season that he's had, Vaughn Miller, there was a stat the Buffalo Bills put out today that of the 4 pressures that the Bills had this past Thursday against the Dolphins, he had all of them and he got a sack out of them, or got a sack out of it. So you've got Groot, you've got Vaughn, you've got Ed Oliver doing Ed Oliver things. And obviously moving into that defensive backfield, what we're getting from, I don't think we're surprised with Benford. I don't think we're surprised with Douglas, but Jamarcus Ingram is a very, very welcome surprise. Cam Lewis is a very, very welcome surprise. But when you kind of get into where the Bills rank in all of these things, these stats, yards per game, the Buffalo Bills are looking at this ESPN, they're at 310 yards per game allowed, total yards per game, which is, I think, an admirable stat. That's not bad at all. Defensively, from passing alone, 179 yards a game is what they're letting up against Kyler Murray and obviously Tua Tagovailoa for 3 quarters. And then rushing yards per game, The Bills fall in at 131.5. So when you look at these numbers and what we've seen for the Buffalo Bills so far, I think the question of the game or of the day, and the question that we posed to the fans as well, and I'd love to see the fans put it in the comments section. Level of concern. Where are you on your level? Are you concerned that the Buffalo Bills can sustain this, or are you not concerned at all? And if so, why? And you guys can decide who goes first.
I'll go.
Okay.
Okay.
To me, the biggest test for the Buffalo Bills is going to be when they play a physical run style football team. When I think of teams like that, I think of if they played a Detroit or they play a San Francisco, which we do later in the year. Baltimore struggling, but Baltimore's a team like that comes to mind. The LA Chargers are going to be built that way because of Jim Harbaugh.
Right.
Watching the All-22 and really digging into this Miami game, one of the things that stood out to me immensely with this group is they have built this defense to play the Kansas City, Miami spread style teams.
Right.
And when you look at this group, it's the NFL, so there's big people, but they're not overly big. This isn't a huge group. You don't see Calais Campbell out there, right?
Right.
But they run like crazy. The team speed is immense. They do a really good job. And when I say triangulation, I'm not talking about like the Death Star before they tried to blow up the Imperial forces with the tractor, with the laser beam or anything. But when I say triangulation, I mean, when a running back comes out and he's outside, okay, number one comes, he's fitting up on the outside shoulder. Number two's coming on the inside shoulder. Three's coming down the middle to keep that thing contained. And it's one guy get there fast and everybody else get there and rally behind him and gang tackle. If you watch it, when you stop these plays, there's 8, 9, 10 guys in the frame when a play is made on defense. So I think the speed is just immense. You look at the cornerbacks, the way we've built this corner group, Elam stepping up this offseason gives you a fourth, but Ingram coming forward. So you really, truly have a bunch of corners that can play when needed. It's just it was really, really impressive to me to watch this group run. Now, I think they are a little weak up the middle. They will give some rush yards up. But again, ultimately in the end, do we keep them out of the end zone? Yes. Do we not give up the explosive plays? Yes. And I think that's really how this defense is being built, through speed, pressure, and getting guys on the ground.
Yeah, there's a very so I was at the Tavern on the Tracks on Thursday in Charlotte, and I was with a work buddy who's a big Packers fan, and he's a Bills fan as well, kind of like his second team, and he's caught on to our show and watches all of our shows. Jake, shout out to you, Jake, good friend of mine. And I said to him, I was like, don't be surprised if the Dolphins go straight down the field on the first drive, because the Bills do that a lot of times. They allow the opposing offense to kind of get down the field on them to kind of feel what they're going to do. Okay, now we know what you're going to do, and then they adjust and shut down. But the Bills are very much a bend but don't break defense. And you guys have both been in locker rooms for the Buffalo Bills where it was predicated on that bend but don't break defense. It's worked very well for both the Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott defenses since Sean McDermott got here. But I get it as far as why you're not necessarily concerned about it. John, rebuttal? Are you concerned? Or are you not concerned?
Yeah, I definitely have a greater level of concern than Jerry. And, one of the things that Jerry omitted, and probably not on purpose, but, he talked about fit, he talked about Phil, and he talked about speed, right? But the one thing about this defense is your brain, right? I mean, we do a lot of adaptation from the moment of lineup to the snap of the ball. My concern, okay, you got Dorian Williams now filling in, doing a fair job, pretty good. Yep. I like the kid. I think he's going to be a star. And then now we're down, right? Terrell Bernard is out, so that's Balin Spectre. And I think with the limited number of snaps that the both of them have had, the middle of the field scares me a little bit. Now, we talked about in the whole preseason the challenge we might have at safety. Taylor Rapp, DeMar Hamlin, both of them seem to be playing pretty well at this point. But if that middle of the field, if you have problems making the calls, making the adjustments, I would attack the Buffalo Bills, not just with the run game in the middle of the field, but the passing game, that sort of medium routes, the X crossing kind of thing. Try to confuse those new, and I'll say new with, the finger quotes,
right,
linebacker core. And then I have a little a little bit of concern about what our depth is at the defensive tackle position, right? So
yeah.
I like the way both guys are playing right now. I saw Dwayne Carter come out for a few snaps. He looked okay, but he's still raw. So I definitely, the alarm bells, we're not in DEFCON 5 or anything like that. But if I'm an opposing coordinator, I am focusing on the middle of the field against the Buffalo Bills defense. And it remains to be seen. But with those two guys out for an indeterminate length of time, Terrell Bernard, Taron Johnson, who's beyond just a corner, he's, a heartbeat, a leader on that defense.
Right.
There's a void. There's a void of leadership. There's a void of experience. And to me, that's some concern, deep concern.
Yeah, getting back to the stats, Dorian Williams leads this team with tackles with 19 total tackles. Cam Lewis, 14. This is probably Damar Hamlin, 14. That's probably not your top 3 tackle leaders you're thinking 2 weeks into the season. And if it always goes back to that. If I told you that this is what was going to be blah, 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 where do you think the Bills would be? And this is one of those like kind of stats. If I told you Dorian Williams, Cam Lewis, and Damar Hamlin were leading this team in tackles back in, say, April or May, we're probably like, well, this team might be 0-2. Terrell Bernard then at number 4 with 13. Balin Spectre at 10 in limited play. Christian Benford at 10. Greg Rousseau at 10. Taylor Rapp at 10. And then from there, everybody else is just in single digits. Sacks-wise, sack leaders on this football team right now, Greg Rousseau at 3. Von Miller. Gentlemen, real quick, what have you seen from Von Miller? It seems like the explosiveness is there. The quickness is there. Everything that you want, the bend is there. Everything you want from Von Miller seems to be there right now.
I'd say what I love about what I'm seeing from Vaughn, and Baldinger brought it up, he just has such a great first step from a 2-point stance.
Right.
And that is not an easy thing to do, especially, coming off that ACL. He's now in year 2, supposedly. It's impressive. And he's got such great hand play. A variety of moves, and this is what he's making the big money for, right? We didn't see the ACL injury coming, but what you're paying for is fight back, get to the best form you possibly can, but then impact the game. And I think there's given what happened to him off the field last year, his ACL injury, I really feel like he's got a dog mentality, like he's still 28, 29 years old. How long will it last? How successful will it be? Yet to be seen, but he's not playing like your front runner who's taking plays off, and that Jerry, to me is a good sign.
Yeah, Jerry. Before you go, I actually want to move from Vaughn to Ed Oliver. I know you wanted to talk about Vaughn for a second, but you were doing some study on Ed Oliver today. Ed Oliver rounds out who's got sacks on this team, and there wasn't a more timely sack than his against the Dolphins on Tua this past Thursday. But what have you seen? What did you watch from Ed Oliver in that game on Thursday when you were watching the film?
You see Ed get a lot of athletic mismatches inside, and sometimes Ed gets binged around a little bit because he is it's funny saying that a guy that's 6'2", 285 or whatever he is undersized. It's crazy to say that, but in the NFL, he is an undersized defensive tackle. So he relies on leverage, speed, get off, strength, those things.
Right.
And he was making plays inside on just he's got immense get off, leverage game, and his finish he's actually, I think, has gotten better with his hands and better with his finish than he did when he even last year. Just an explosive dude inside. And when he can get edges, it's hard for guards to mess with him because he is so athletic. And then he is also very strong. So, you're seeing Ed make a lot of plays just because of his explosiveness, athleticism, just what he does.
Yeah, and let's not forget, nor disparage Daquan Jones, whose job is there to eat up space and eat up humans, right? Eat up bodies.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I watched a lot. Go ahead, Joe or John. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to tell Joe and Jerry, both of you, great points. Daquan's he's coming off the ball like an animal. And Jerry's point was really good. People think about defensive players just being strong and filling space, but the hand fighting that happens, between the guards is pretty significant. And when you're able to time it up and really work on the guard's hands, the center's hands, the opportunities begin to open up. And because he's 6'2", undersized, 285, whatever you want to call it, but his quickness and his hand fighting has really developed to give him the opportunity to create an edge, right? Jerry will tell you, offensive linemen want their numbers to face the end zone as long and hard as they possibly can. But once you get a guy's hands off you, generally you're going to see a shoulder come forward. Now you have an edge, and then you can work that leverage at 6'2" and powerful to make your way upfield, make your way off a block. So just a great observation, Jerry.
Joe, I think a lot of it has to do with the way the ball is being run nowadays in football, because you've got the spread game, right? You've got limited people inside. You got a lot of times you have just your 5 offensive linemen because they've got receivers and tight ends flexed out and everything else. So how do you block a defense with 5 guys? Well, you run gap schemes. And when I say gap schemes, I'm talking about power, counter, stuff where you've got trappers. How do you defeat the trap? You defeat the trap by getting upfield. You get on a shoulder and you get upfield and you create penetration. You get the trap guys off of their path and those types of things. It's why back in the 70s and 80s, they ran a lot of gap scheme stuff. Everybody had real quick defensive linemen like guys do now. And then they went to what's called the true zone scheme, where you got 2 big old fat guys, John, excluding John, because he wasn't fat. And, they got hip to hip and they took up all this space, and these little guys had no advantage anymore, right? Because the linemen's feet, the splits were about a foot wide.
Right.
Well, now because of the way we're running the spread, splits have gotten wider again. Now the guys like Ed Oliver are coming back in play because they're able to get the upfield through those gaps before guys can get to them. And, I think there is a little bit of a philosophical difference this year than in past years with this defensive line. I don't know if it's Babbage. I don't know if it's McDermott, the defensive line coach, but they are like, John talked about Daquan. They're getting upfield. They're playing 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage, or that's the point they're trying to get to. And it's causing problems a lot of times.
Yeah, is that probably what's predicating the success of this defense right now, as far as what's helping out maybe the middle of the field, where the concern that I would say I share with John lies?
I think has something to do with it. I just think this is you want to talk about a group of dudes that competes and flies to the football.
Right.
You get a bunch of guys where the football is, they're going to get somebody on the ground. And right now they're playing at a speed level and an effort level that I hadn't seen in Buffalo in quite some time. And I'm not saying these other defenses were terribly bad.
Right.
It's just a different level. It's a different feeling. And, it's amazing what youth does. We've talked about in the past, not just youth as players, but youth as coordinators. Pretty cool to see.
Where are we at on level?
Yeah, Jerry.
Sorry, John.
I just love that the game evolves. People don't tend to look back too far, decades back, and how offenses have been, philosophically, whether you're muscling or whether you're angling on guys. And I think that that's really important, going to what you said, younger coaching staff, understanding the game evolving, more creativity. So the biggest benefit I think that Buffalo has right now is the mindset, right? Last year, the year before, heir apparent. This year, a little bit counted out. And when you get young guys like that who feel they're talented, who are having success, and their mindset is, we have to beat the world because everybody's picking us 4th in the AFC or 5th in the AFC and 2nd in our division. So if you can carry that, if you can, fake it till you make it, so to speak, and carry that chip on your shoulder and perform at the same time, that gives them a chance. That means that Balin Spectre, Dorian Williams, and the inside 2 and the back 2 at the safety positions, you can end up making some big plays, playing with a little bit more confidence than maybe you deserve.
Yeah. And I kind of want to build on this Spectre thing that John, brought him up. I think people need to understand one of the biggest nervousness I have about Terrell Bernard being out. And believe me, I do still believe he is the most important player on this defense.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to lose some of the splash plays that he makes, and just with speed and the way he's able to read and break down runs and get through gaps and things like that. And I do have a nervousness about depth, because right now, we're starting to bring in guys, that we brought in as free agents, or, maybe Joe Andreessen or whoever, if something were to happen to Spectre. But guys, Spectre's a good football player.
Yeah.
He's very good. He is different than Bernard, but the thing that he gives you, he probably plays the run better than Bernard. And when I say that, he's a true blue inside linebacker.
Right.
Clear the cleats, see it, diagnose, get downhill. Bigger dude can take on blocks and things like that. So while it's a different style of play, I think he does maybe make that middle of the field a little bit stronger. And watching that all 22, he did a really good job. Now, granted, he's not going to cover stuff like Bernard did, maybe even run stuff down like Bernard did. But as far as the fundamentals and being a solid inside linebacker, he's got that skill set.
Yeah, that's super good. Super well said, too. Balin Spectre was just...
Don't misunderstand me, Jerry. I'm not saying Balin's not a good football player.
No, I didn't say you were.
No. And my concern, and to your point, he's great. He's big on Phil. That concerns me. Young player, wants to stop the run. Play action is and I love play action. We loved it when we were there. We wanted more of it. We didn't get it. We never got what we wanted up front.
Right.
But that's the type of thing that a young guy, and this league, one mistake leads to a 40-yard, 60-yard touchdown, big play. And that's my level of concern.
Right. No, and I wasn't saying you were being negative on him. I was just kind of bringing to light what I saw today, because I did, like this morning, I sat down with a cup of coffee and watched it and looked at it and really kind of paid attention to him. But I also agree with Daniel over here real quick before we get to the next point. He does play well, but he also has injury issues, right? So it's iffy.
Yeah.
It's iffy.
Yep. What I was going to say about Balin Spectre was just he's been right there for the last couple of years, where he flashes in preseason and makes the practice squad, gets called. And it's nice to see him get this opportunity. Right. I don't like the reason, obviously, that he's getting the opportunity, but it's going to be good to see what he can do. And who knows, maybe we're going to get a look at Buffalo Joe here in the next couple of weeks. Speaking of the next couple of weeks, as I get us out of here real quick, because we've been on for about a half hour. Pretty good show so far. The Buffalo Bills, obviously, as I said, have the Jaguars coming into Buffalo, and then they go on a little bit of a tear. They go into Baltimore, and then they go into Houston, and then they go to the Jets. This is and then welcome the Titans back home again on October 20th. When you look at that stretch, though, Ravens, Texans, Jets, they're going to get tested. Yeah.
100%. This really is, getting through the Miami game and feeling the way we feel right now, it's fine as a fan, but as a player, you look at those next 4 games, including the Jaguars, who are in pain right now. And, it's time to buck up. It's time to get the playbook open, study, dot the I's, cross the T's, whatever expression you want to use. But I say to my kids all the time, perfection is unattainable, but striving for perfection is your daily mission. Yeah. Right. And that's got to be their daily, hourly, second by second, minute by minute mission over the course of the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think that it is a stretch that we talked about before the season even started and focused on it. I mean, it's going to be a challenge. I know the Ravens are 0-2, but they're still a really good football team playing at home. Yep. The Jets, we've circled that game forever. What are you going to see from them? They did win today. Rodgers had under, I think, 200 yards passing, but he did have 2 touchdown passes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the week after that. But I really want to focus on this Jacksonville team. I truly believe they're better than their record. I think it's a very formidable team. They can do some things to us that I think can give us some fits. Mm-hmm. I think they're going to ugly it up. I think they're going to hand the ball off. You're going to see a lot of play action, things like that. So, it's a different kind of game than we've seen over the first 2 weeks of, glorified 7-on-7, right? Because that's kind of what we got out of the first 2 teams. So they're going to have to hunker down and really, study, get after it this week, because I do think Jacksonville's a good team.
Yeah, John, the quote that I have been saying for the last, decade and a half or so is we strive for perfection and settle for excellence is basically what we've always said at work. But program-wise, coming up on the Overreaction Sports Network, the Overreaction Buffalo Show, or Sports Network, I should say. So Monday, Off Tackle with John Fina live at 8 p.m. Tuesday, On the Beat. Hopefully going to be having Vic Carucci on with us. Wednesday, Hump Day Hotline. And then the Big O Show on Thursday. And then for next week on Sunday, I would probably, gentlemen, expect some sort of a pregame show from us, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And then a postgame show following the Monday night football game.
let's just have the pregame show be a homage, like a half-hour homage to John Fina, the legend of the game. We can just talk about John. We can bring in people that, have been influenced by John throughout their lives, maybe start and talk about his humble beginnings, and
nice.
Just a poor veterinarian son, things like that.
Yeah.
And, I think it'd be awesome.
Well, what we need AI to go through and find every clip of John Fina tape that exists, and then we'll just replay it for an hour. Go ahead, John.
What the hell did I do to deserve this?
You're the legend of the game, John. I mean, it's like that old saying, those guys are like, hey, man, I know I'm in the Hall of Fame, but if I'm in the Hall of Fame, you guys are in the Hall of Fame too. I'm the legend of the game on Monday night too, because that's my dog, man. You're
amazing.
My guy. So me and Joe
John
are the
logs
legend
off
of the game too.
That is amazing. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for tuning into the Overreaction Buffalo Sports Show on the Overreaction Sports Network, powered by Believe. So good to have every single one of you joining us. Enjoy this week, ladies and gentlemen. Bills Mafia fam, enjoy it. Victory all week long. Victory week for us that are Bills fans, but for me, for John, for Jerry, for all of us here at the Overreaction Sports Network. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Much love. Go Bills.
Go Bills.